Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and the Formula One season has started at last. Actually, it doesn't really feel like it was that long ago it finished, but in Bahrain we had our first race of the season. Was it an exciting one? Not really, but as previously discussed, the Bahrain circuit is a pretty dull track. The on-track action wasn't amazing, but if there was an exciting moment to be had, then it involved Fernando Alonso, who was by far the most exciting driver to watch. Some incredible overtaking. It's great to see Aston Martin in a position where they're challenging the top teams. It's not just a case that they're best of the rest. Fernando Alonso creamed both Mercedes drivers this week, and he wasn't a million miles off the Ferraris. In fact, he passed Sainz, and he got a podium, which is these days a rare occasion for Fernando Alonso, but if he can keep this form up for the rest of the season, we're probably going to see Fernando Alonso on the podium a few more times, if not maybe the top step, although I think he needs things to happen for him to be able to take victories. And on Lance Stroll as well, as much as I dump on the guy for being useless, and I do still believe that he is entirely still in F1 because his dad's the boss. Because let's face it, he's had what? Is this his 7th or 8th season in Formula One? If his dad wasn't working for the team, Lance Stroll would have only had 2 or 3 seasons max, about the same as Nicholas Latifi. But in a strong car, he put in a decent performance today. 6th place with a broken wrist and a broken foot, or broken toes or something. That's a decent performance. He held off George Russell towards the end as well. He wasn't a million miles behind Lewis Hamilton. And if he can try and keep pace with his teammate, he'll be doing a fantastic job. This, I think, almost definitely will be his best season in Formula One. Maybe he can even scrape a few podiums himself. And I can't say I'm entirely shocked by Aston Martin's performance. We saw it in the testing. We saw it in practice this week. Qualifying was a bit of a letdown, but in the race, they were incredible. The move Alonso did on Lewis Hamilton, that was a 10 out of 10 move. Yes, he almost crashed into Lewis Hamilton at the first attempt, but the second attempt was absolutely stunning. He set Sainz up brilliantly as well and got him. It was just an all-round top performance from Fernando Alonso. Definitely driver of the day. As for everyone else, Max Verstappen, pole, led every lap, took the win really easily. You think he even had a 10-second gap over Perez. He was 30 seconds ahead of Alonso. It was ridiculous. If we keep seeing that all year, it's going to be fairly disappointing. I was kind of hoping when Aston Martin showed some performance that we were going to have this 4-way fight between the Red Bulls, the Ferraris, the Astons and the Mercedes, with 7 or 8 drivers getting involved. That does sound like a really good Formula One season. But Red Bull seemed to have pulled away from everyone else, with Ferrari just behind and then Aston and Mercedes pretty close to each other on performance. This was just a domination from Verstappen, and we're becoming a bit too accustomed to it. And it'd be nice to see Red Bull get drawn back into the pack a little bit. But as it is, this was a 1-2 win for Red Bull that could not have been easier. Perez put in a very good performance as well to back up his teammate. This was a fantastic start for the team. This was Verstappen's first ever win in Bahrain. So at least he's crossed that one off the list. But, I mean, he got, 17 wins last year, was it? He could easily do that again based on this performance. As I said, Sergio Perez did a decent job in qualifying, did a decent job in the race. Can't fault him whatsoever. He's still probably a couple of steps behind his teammate. But this was still very good from the Mexican. And then on to Ferrari. Ferrari are a difficult beast. As much as I want to support them because they are Ferrari, they are... It's so disheartening. I can't imagine being a member of the Tifosi, having this outright love for the team no matter what, and then watching things like this where Charles Leclerc was not on the performance of Verstappen, not really on the performance of Perez either, and then he breaks down as well and gets 0 points. They can't be doing this, not this early in the season. And that is already a massive blow to Leclerc's championship, because Verstappen is not going to drop that many points throughout the year. Dropping it at the first race, that's sad. And it's not Leclerc's fault. He drove very well, but 0 points because an engine failed. And they're probably going to have to change that engine. And that's going to affect them for the rest of the year as well, because they have limited engines to use. They need to get their head in the game. Sainz, good performance, but he seemed to lose pace towards the end. I don't know if that was a strategy issue or if just the Ferrari couldn't keep its tyres fresh enough. Alonso, as I said, set him up pretty well and got past him, but he was still in a position where he could do that. Towards the end of the race, the Aston definitely had the performance advantage over the Ferrari. That's got to be a worry for them. Ferrari need to do something. I mean, it was made a big deal that Frederick Vasseur, whatever his name is, replaced Binotto, and now going in a new direction, and they're going to try and right some of the wrongs. They've taken, I mean, I say they've taken a step backwards, but this is pretty much what we saw from Ferrari last year, just a lot earlier. So they need to sort themselves out. This was not a good Ferrari performance. Mercedes as well will be disappointed. They really seem to be the number 2 team towards the back end of last year. They've definitely taken a step backwards because they looked like they had issues during testing. They weren't really on the pace in practice, but they did okay in qualifying, although Hamilton was 7th on the grid. And then during the race, they just weren't on the pace of anyone else. By the end of it, it wasn't really that surprising that Alonso passed Hamilton because he was just so much quicker. Again, I don't know if this is an issue of they can't keep the tyres fresh enough or genuinely they lack race pace. But that means they've got a long way to go to develop the car to something competitive. And whilst they're doing that, their rivals are pulling further away. If Aston Martin are ahead of them, it's a big shock to the system because Mercedes, who were the absolute number 1 top dominating team, probably in Formula One history for at least a decade or nearly a decade, and now, well, Red Bull have overtaken them, and Ferrari and Aston Martin are there and thereabouts. It'll depend. Mercedes developed very well over the year. By the end of the year, they could be back on the pace. But it's, again, not putting themselves in the best position to challenge for the title, which for Hamilton is going to be mega disappointing. Obviously, this is his 16th season in Formula One. He's got to sign a new contract. Is he going to want to if Mercedes aren't on the pace, or is he just going to decide to hang it up here? Again, this question we've been asking for months this time, and we've asked it previously in the past. But how far is his motivation going to go if he can't take race wins, if he's going to be stuck in the midfield? He doesn't do too well in the midfield. And we could bring this back to, is Lewis Hamilton the GOAT? All those arguments, the videos people have made on YouTube that we've discussed before. No, he's not the GOAT, because once he's in a position where he's back in the midfield or not leading the race and having to fight for his position, he doesn't tend to fare too well. I don't think Lewis Hamilton likes doing the one-on-one battles. Once Alonso caught him, Alonso got past fairly easily. It was a fantastic move, but Alonso should have overtaken him the first attempt. It's only because the Aston Martin kind of got a bit squiggly that he didn't. And once Hamilton was in 5th, chasing Sainz, Alonso and Sainz slowed each other up. Hamilton got onto the back of the Ferrari, but then just dropped back. He couldn't get past him. It's not where Hamilton wants to be, and it's not where he's at his best. And for that reason, no, he's not the GOAT, because it's just something that he's never really been particularly good at. If you stuck Senna and Prost in a midfield car at the back of the grid, they would have got results. You saw Prost in Renaults that were blowing themselves up back in the 80s. He could still take that car that was definitely not the best in the field, although at times it probably was the quickest. But he could still take a bad car and get results. And Senna, of course, got a second at Monaco in a Tolman, which everyone knows about. But there were other results that year in the Tolman, which was heavy and underpowered, that Senna was able to bring it in for points. Top drivers can do that. Other drivers, they need the best car in the field to get the results. And Mercedes do not have the best car in the field right now. As for the rest of the points, out of those 4 teams, they filled 7 of the top 10. And Charles Leclerc would have been up there as well if he had not broken down. So the rest of the field are definitely playing catch up a little bit. Bottas finished 8th. Good result for Alfa Romeo, but Alfa Romeo started the season off well last year. They could not keep it up. So that's going to be their issue to overcome this year. But it was still a very good drive from Bottas. Gasly for Alpine in 9th. Not a good race for Alpine. I mean, Ocon got like 20 seconds worth of penalties and then retired. Gasly had his issues but managed to drag it back up to 9th. It was points in his debut for the team. It's not too bad, but I'm thinking he probably wants to do better. He did not have a great qualifying. He did start last, I think. So it was a good performance to get that high up the field in the end for Gasly. Alexander Albon in 10th for Williams. Brilliant result for them. Honestly, scoring points is the goal for them. So that was fantastic for him. Outside of points, Tsunoda, once again, it wasn't a bad performance. AlphaTauri clearly don't have the pace, but Tsunoda needs to give 110% and grind some results to keep his job, because he has not scored enough points finishes in Formula 1, and this is his 3rd season, so he needs to kick on. Nick De Vries and Logan Sargent on their debuts did well enough. They may not have scored points, but they finished the race, and they didn't crash, they didn't embarrass themselves. As for everyone else, I think pretty much Guan Yu Zhou, he looked... I mean, he didn't even look quick this weekend, but he got into Q2, he did okay. Didn't score points. I think everyone else, honestly, the Hasses, Hulkenberg worried me by getting into Q3, but he had his issues and he dropped down. Magnussen was pretty much nowhere this weekend. And then we got on to McLaren, who had all the issues. Piastri maybe thinking he should have taken the Alpine seat because McLaren are clearly in trouble. He retired fairly early on with, I think it was electrical issues, they said, or gearbox. I can't remember what they said now. Norris, he had to make like 10 pit stops to get the car filled up with air or something, and it's not good for McLaren. Both cars down the bottom end of the field, one out of the race, one clearly wounded. Honestly, for them, it's just going to be a case of develop the car as best they can and get it as high into the midfield as possible. If you can give Norris a half-decent car, he'll get results. And Piastri, he needs to learn, but he's not a bad driver. I'm sure he'll get a couple of points finishes by the end of the year. But it's a very bad time for the Woking-based team. So that was Bahrain. Let me know what you think in the comments. As I said, I don't like the Bahrain track, and I never have. And we have Saudi Arabia next. It's another track I'm not particularly fond of, but I'm sure Formula 1 will give its best no matter what. And it's going to be interesting to see if Aston Martin can keep up these performances, maybe even challenge Red Bull eventually. So with that, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you to everyone who has recently. We've had a massive surge in growth for the last couple of months. It's been incredible to watch. Every time I'm logging into YouTube, I'm seeing new subscribers. That's insane. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, let me know what you think and have a good one.